Today, I want to talk about a scary subject for many people, and that is that right now may be the best chance to ever buy a home that you ever see again. We have a lot of things happening economically right now that unfortunately could point to that becoming a reality. And even though I believe that home prices need to become more affordable myself, I think that there's at least a decent probability that we could unfortunately see the opposite outcome, and even worse, we could see prices accelerate to the upside even faster than what we saw in the recovery from 2012, 2013 through a couple years ago, maybe 2022. And since I always want to give you guys as much information as I can to help you make the best decisions possible on this channel, I want to share with you the bull case for real estate. So let's go ahead and get started. And I also want to take a moment and say that if you are in the Los Angeles County or North Orange County areas and you need help buying or selling real estate, please reach out to me. I'm here to help. My contact information is down below. So the first main reason why we could end up seeing home prices really start to take off again is if the Federal Reserve is successful at lowering interest rates. And of course, there's a lot of pressure on them right now to do so and to do so quickly. And there are several reasons why I believe this could end up being the case. First off, if you think about the fact that mortgage rates went as high as 7.5%, and that didn't even cause home prices to fall meaningfully, that really shows you how much money is sloshing around in markets for people to be able to buy homes even at higher interest rates. And this could really be the writing on the wall that tells us that if rates are to go back down again, it's likely to just become more extreme, meaning since there's already enough money chasing the real estate that's currently available at the current interest rates, if interest rates fall a whole bunch, that just means there's going to be even more people out there able to buy whatever real estate ends up on the market. And if this wasn't the case, we obviously would have seen much more meaningful declines in home prices over these last 2 years, where we've had substantially higher interest rates than many, many years before that. Now, the second reason why I think there's a decently high probability of this outcome is the country just has way, way too much debt. And the only way that the government can maintain that debt is by lowering interest rates and creating more inflation. And what I mean by that is that the current debt load is unsustainable at the current interest rates. And so the government basically has one option at this point, and that is going to be to force interest rates down by doing something called monetizing the debt, or more simply, they're going to print massive amounts of money to buy up all kinds of bonds, government debt, mortgage securities, so on and so forth, in the open market. So that way there's so much demand for these bonds and these debt instruments that is ultimately going to push the interest rates down. And needless to say, this is new money that is being printed and created in order to buy up these bonds. And that new money that's printed and created leads to spikes in inflation, which is already the big problem that society has had to face over the last couple of years. And I think that if we end up going this route in terms of central planning, it is likely that the inflation that we saw since COVID is ultimately going to prove to be child's play to the inflation that we're going to see going forward, as unfortunate as that is going to be. And as we have more and more inflation, that is going to lead to even more speculation. People are going to want to be parked in real estate because they know that the asset values will grow. And so it becomes kind of a self-reinforcing feedback loop, if you will. And that's really the conditions that the Federal Reserve created after the housing crash in 08-09. And we really saw the effects of that in 2012 through maybe 2022, 2023. Additionally, as we have even more inflation, that is going to push rents higher and higher, and higher rents make real estate even more valuable. So that could ultimately be another tailwind pushing real estate prices even higher. So a combination of all of these factors could ultimately lead to a melt up in home prices and rents across the nation. And I think there's a decent chance that that's what ends up happening, given what I'm seeing being projected out of government and the stuff that's happening with trying to control the Federal Reserve. The final reason that I think could contribute to making this the the last opportunity for many people to be able to afford a home is that the government is likely to continue to get involved in the housing market, not to make it more affordable, but rather to just print up more money to try to help people be able to buy a home. Now, I live in California, and over the last several years, we've seen a number of different programs that essentially did just that. They gave buyers money so they could buy homes with, in some cases, zero down or very little money out of pocket. And in fact, the government right now is already talking about additional ideas just like this, but at the federal level, to essentially just create money that we don't have and give it to certain people in a perverse way to attempt to deal with rising housing prices instead of allowing prices to fall to where they would need to be in order for people to actually be able to afford them. Now, there are obvious reasons why they have to do this, and some of those are that if they were to pursue policies to make housing more affordable, it would create a lot of instability in markets. There would be banks defaulting on debt. There would be massive revaluations in assets on different balance sheets, and it would just create all kinds of problems. And for that reason, we should have never allowed things to get as bad as they are. But of course they did. And so now we are facing the consequences of those poor decisions over a long period of time. And I hear tons and tons of commentators and people on YouTube talking about how home prices are necessarily going to crash. And so that's why I think it's important to discuss both sides of the coin, even though I personally believe we need more affordable housing prices and more restrictive interest rates, which of course over time would lead to better affordability. I think there's a decent chance that that is not what is going to end up happening. And I want to make sure you guys have the information you need to be as prepared as possible. Now, again, if I can help you with any real estate needs, please reach out to me. I always appreciate you guys watching my videos. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.